Hi everyone, we're back with our second YouTube video, and today we're going to be talking about how to avoid a midlife crisis. Now you might be saying, but you girls are too young to have a midlife crisis. Well, actually we're not super young. I just turned 39.
And I will be 40 in July.
Okay, so midlife crisis, they say it can happen anytime in your 40s, but there's no solid rule. My dad went through a midlife crisis at 38, so we don't need to be so hard and fast about this. But we wanted to do a video like this because turning 40, you definitely there's a lot of feelings around it, and we just wanted to kind of have an open discussion about this, and we hope that you express whatever you'd like to in the comments about any feelings you had about turning 40 or turning 30. Some people feel like they're going through a quarter life crisis at 25. So, the world it's hard, and this is just an attempt to have a dialogue to explore some of those feelings that people have going into 40 or their early 40s, and about getting older and some of the challenges that we face and some tips that will hopefully be helpful for you. First, we'll start with Wikipedia's definition of what is a midlife crisis, and maybe some of this will resonate with some of you.
Definition: a psychological crisis brought about by events that highlight a person's growing age, inevitable mortality, and possibly lack of accomplishments in life. This may produce feelings of intense depression, remorse, and high levels of anxiety, or the desire to achieve youthfulness or make drastic changes to their current lifestyle, or feel the wish to change past decisions and events.
So some of the narratives that go on in the mind of somebody entering a midlife crisis, and some of the symptoms that a person might have one, are these. Just like adolescents struggle with the problems of youth, adults struggle with getting older. It comes to that point where you can feel like the best part of your life has already passed, and that you haven't accomplished the things that you wished you accomplished. Or maybe you have accomplished some of those things, and now you're wondering, now what? What's left? What's left for me to do? What's my purpose? What should I be doing? Have I wasted my life? Feelings of regret over the loss of time. Obviously when you're 20 years old, you are wide-eyed and the world is your oyster and the possibilities are endless. And turning to 40, you feel like, well, I can't do everything, and I definitely have new limitations, and maybe I have health problems, or just you can start to feel like you're going crazy. So those are some of the things. Some people have said, I began to feel that my life was ending, like you've turned a corner and now it's just that slow descent into death. Or we can feel less important than we did in our younger years, in our 20s and 30s. We could also feel jealous of other people, especially younger people, maybe what they're doing with their careers, or maybe how they're aging, like comparing ourselves looks wise with, oh, well, I'm not as skinny as I used to be, or as that person, or I'm starting to get some wrinkles or age spots or whatever. Also feeling anxiety about the future. That's another symptom. Also the loss of a wish, or the loss of the idea of who you wanted to be, and feeling like you did not accomplish that. You're confronted with reality, and that can make you feel disappointed or resentful. So those are some of the narratives, or the things that go on in your head when you're going into a midlife crisis, some of the feelings that are swarming around that. So now we're going to talk about 14 tips, and we have been discussing these with other friends of ours. We have friends in their late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, and we've had dialogues with them about some of their feelings going into it, and it's interesting to see how we can relate to each other on some of these things, and it's comforting to have those types of conversations with each other. So, some tips. Tip number 1 is to address the feelings about approaching whatever age it is that is causing you anxiety. You might ask yourself, well, what if I took another road? What if I did something else? Where would I be now? But it's important to remember that each step that you've taken has brought you to this moment, and this moment is exactly where you need to be. That's nothing to feel regret over. That's something that it's empowering to say, this is the moment that I'm in right now. All of my past experience has led me here, and now I am in the best position more than ever before to use that experience and that knowledge that you gained in your life to make a bigger difference and a bigger impact going forward. We might feel that sense of fleeting time. I don't have the time to do the things that I wish I would have done. And making rash decisions, as tempting as that could be, is really just an avoidance of reality. It's a way of escaping the discomfort of now and the place that we are in our lives. So that's number one, is to address those feelings. Just face them head on and acknowledge them so that they're not wielding hidden power over you.
The second tip would be to ask what the underlying feeling is beneath the troubling thoughts. So could it be past unfinished business that you're sensing and making you feel nervous about?
Yeah, sometimes it could be something that you've been avoiding and that you haven't wanted to face, and maybe that's underneath, simmering beneath all of those other feelings of anxiety about the future. So it's worth to kind of like look at the basic feelings, but then also dig beneath that and say, but why is this happening? And why is this coming up now? And what's pushing me in this direction? And when do I feel like this the most? Maybe being around certain people, it starts to come out, or we feel triggered. So that's number two. Number three, when it comes to the impulse to make rash decisions, or I just want to feel alive. And so maybe that's when people can cheat on their spouse, or they buy an expensive car, do those typical things, or even sometimes it's these little micro rebellions, you know. But if you actually stop and fast forward, sometimes that can help to think, well, what will the domino effect be of these decisions? What are the consequences, long term and short term? Who is it going to affect? Who is it going to hurt? Sometimes give you a little bit of poise and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that, because I don't want to deal with the fallout of those decisions.
Yeah. The fourth, you can take inventory of where you are and how you feel about every part of your life. To be brutally honest, write it down, talk to a friend about it.
One of the things about anxiety is this unknown, not being able to control everything, or not knowing how to handle something, or what if. So it's good to just write on paper. Or you can even discuss it with a friend. Step 5 would be write a list of the 5 biggest mistakes that you made in the last 20 years, and then how you overcame them and what lessons you learned from those mistakes, because that will get you thinking about how what we can see as a mistake actually benefits us in the end. And again, that goes back to every step that we've taken has brought us here. So those mistakes have brought us here. And it's something we should be grateful for. We learned from those mistakes. But to actually write down, well, what were they? What were these biggest mistakes? We might feel a vague sense of, I didn't do something right, or I missed this opportunity. But actually write it down. We might see, actually, they're not so bad. Or it could be like, all right, that was pretty bad.
It's in the past, let it go.
It's in the past. What did I learn from it? And how did my life change for the better because of those mistakes? Or even if it changed for the worse, well, how do I not repeat that? So that's step 5, is to actually write a list of 5 mistakes that you made in the last 20 years.
Step 6, write a list of 5 accomplishments that you would be proud of in the last 10 years.
Yeah, so this is going to build that, just get positive thoughts overriding the sense of regret or the sense of loss. To actually look at, if I'm going to be harsh with myself about what I did wrong, let me be honest with myself about what I did right. Because the truth is, nobody's life is 100% mistakes. We've all accomplished things, even unintentionally sometimes. So sometimes to write that out can be encouraging, that, you know, it wasn't all a waste of time. I didn't do nothing for 20 years. I actually did accomplish some things. Number 7 is to now think about the future. So that's a reflection on the past, the number 5 and 6. And now number 7 is to look to the future and think of 5 goals that you want to accomplish in the next 5 years. So more short term, because I think some of the midlife crisis is, oh, well, I didn't do this. Okay, what didn't you do? What didn't you do? Write it out and go do it. Maybe there are some opportunities that, yes, they were in the past. You got some cool job offer, or maybe a relationship, somebody that you connected with and you didn't end up with that person. Okay, you can't change that per se. But what is it about that person that you like? Maybe You know, if you're single, you could find that in another person. Or maybe it's looking for other fulfilling work. You're not too old to find a better job or a job that you would enjoy more. So writing out those 5 goals and realizing like, oh, I'm actually in a good position, especially if you have your health, you can accomplish that. You don't have to just feel like it was all a wash and roll over and die now. So that's number 7.
Yes, talk to a friend is number 8. So in your sphere of people that you know, who is the most dependable that would actually have a real conversation with you where you can set up a dialogue to address the feelings that you're having.
Yeah, and actually just occurred to me too, like it's so important at every age, but I think especially in your 30s and 40s when you realize, oh, good friends are very hard to find. It's harder to make friends in your 30s than it was in your 20s when you're just social butterfly. So part of the coping with this crisis is to nurture those friendships and to feel like you can have real talks with people and be the kind of person that people want to have real talks with, and be a good listener, be a good friend. And then there's a lot of healing that can come from those conversations and that feeling of support that, oh, I'm not alone, because these thoughts can be very isolating and make us feel alienated from others. But to talk and have these friendships, it's like, okay, this is normal. This is par for the course. So that can provide some relief. Number 9 is to adjust our view of time. If we only think we are born and we turn a corner at 40 or 45 or 50, and then that's our halfway point of our life, and then we die and that's it, that is depressing. But number 9 is to pursue spirituality, pursue a system of beliefs where our view of time is expanded and we understand that there's actually a lot more to this life than just what we see with our eyes. There is a broader view of time, and there is forever ahead of us, and what is our role in forever. So that can kind of help us zoom out a little bit from the scope of our life and see that there's a lot more going on that's much bigger than us, and just tap into the role that we can play in that bigger universal and timeless play that's going on. Okay, we won't say her name. So part of the research for this video was to go out into the field and ask people that we know some of their advice, people who are older than us, for what are some of their advice, what's some of their advice that they would give about going through this period of your life. So one of my friends, we won't say her name, but she had step 10,
yes.
Or tip 10.
Cut out toxic elements from your life. And it also could be things that make you feel unnecessarily negative. Learn the difference between being forgiving and tolerant, and just trusting when your gut says to avoid something. Very important. Great advice.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to like having more of a challenge in your 30s and 40s to make friends. You might end up holding on to people who are no longer improving your life, and you've hit a cap, and maybe they're actually bringing you down, and maybe they're caught in a cycle and you've tried to help them and they refuse to be helped, and now it's bringing you down. So that's part of the toxic elements to cut out too, because then that could put you into a negative thought cycle of like, oh, well, what about, and that influences you, and now you've come into a darker place than you would have if you would just have healthy boundaries and say, I love you, and now we're gonna just create some space and pursue friendships that really make you feel better about yourself and that are more uplifting. Number 11 is also from a friend of mine who said, do not try to live the way you did in your 20s. Like, your energy level is not the same, your wallet is not the same, your resilience may not be the same. Also, you used to go to a bunch of concerts, you used to be out late, you eat whatever you want. That doesn't really fly in your 30s and in your 40s. It's like, hold on, my body has limits. So that's a good tip, because I think it's adjusting okay, I have new limits and I also have new advantages, and customizing your life to fit that new set of needs and limitations.
Speaking of new experiences, create them. They might not just come to you and happen along the way. You can create them for yourself. Go out of your comfort zone, try new foods, go to a different destination that you've never been to before, talk to a person that you would not have originally talked to years ago in a different sector of life potentially.
So that's number 12. Number 13 supports that, is to travel abroad. Go to other countries, go places you've never been before. The one benefit of that is that it gets the dopamine feeling of in love chemical that comes with novelty and trying new things. And also, different cultures have different views of time too, and you can see people your age and older having the time of their life and loving their life. So it's just really broaden your perspective and see that there's so much more out there than just the little ecosystem that we live in on a day-to-day basis. It helps, and it's enjoyable, and it's just good for the brain.
And the number 14 tip, don't take yourself too seriously. We at times are just given to constant contradiction of what we're doing. Are we saying it right? Are we talking to the right people? Have we made all the right choices? Don't take yourself too seriously in general.
Yeah, be able to laugh at yourself, because that lightens the mood for everybody. And it tells you, like, yeah, so you make a few mistakes or you trip or whatever. It's just not that serious. At the end of the day, nobody cares. And like another 5 minutes, never mind a year or 5 years. So that's a good tip. That was also from my friend.
Brava.
So, yeah.
There is a poem by Robert Frost called The Road Not Taken. This is one of the most poignant pieces that I find he wrote, and it speaks to the journey of life as a road. So we have many options in life, which road we will travel down, and to not ever feel that you have created a rut in your road. Like, you can still make your choice and choose a different path if you find that what you are doing now isn't exactly what you had always hoped and dreamed, which I think is so fabulous for him to have put it in such a concise order of emotions and events in just this small poem.
And then also there's this song, there's not a lot of songs about midlife crisis, but just thought of one that does touch on that topic.
Right. Tim McGraw, In My Next 30 Years. Great song about where do you go from here? Like, what can I do differently that might give me another end result? So we're not at the end. We're still alive, breathing air. Live it up. Yeah, within reason. Don't get crazy and jump off a bridge or something. But yeah,
there's still life to live.
Yeah,
there's still life to be enjoyed.
Plenty of things to do.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. We hope that you enjoy these tips and that maybe they're helpful to some of you, or it can start a dialogue with you and your friends about this time of your life. There's so much more to live for. There's so much life to be lived. So many new things to try. So many relationships to strengthen. If you can, please put in the comments some of the thoughts and feelings you've had about turning 30 or turning 40 or turning 45 or 50, and maybe some of the life lessons that you've learned or any advice that you have that you would like to share with others about this time. So thank you. We'll see you next time.
See you.